It's time for the Bleed Lows Podcast with your hosts, Alonso and Juan, Alicia Del Valle, and the babyface gimmick in the sky, Roger.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast as we are preparing for the 2024 World Series between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. And we're having friend of the show, ESPN insider Jorge Castillo, join us as our go-to source for all New York media. Jorge, thanks again for coming on. I feel like you've probably been super busy the past couple of weeks with both New York teams kind of going on deep October runs, but here we are in the final series of the year.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Nice being back. Yeah, man. It's been a crazy time between the Mets and the Yankees, and now it's going to be Yankees Dodgers. Kind of weird for me, having been in LA for so long, and then having it be Yankees Dodgers, living out here in New York now. But it's going to be a really fun series. I'm really looking forward to it. I know a lot of people are. It's kind of what everybody wanted, right? Yankees Dodgers, or a lot of people. I know there's always haters out there, but. Every year people complain about the World Series, but this is about as star-studded as it can get. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if for people that don't remember, you did cover the Dodgers for the Los Angeles Times before you took the gig at ESPN. So I feel like you're as qualified as anybody to kind of talk about both of these teams here, just because I feel like you probably know a good amount about the Dodgers and you know a really good bit about the Yankees now. So, I mean, what does it mean for these two teams to finally meet up again? And what like over 40 years, 1981 is the last time they've met. It's a pretty big game. And like you mentioned, there are a lot of haters out there, but this is good for the game of baseball, is it not?
I think so. I mean, it's not like this happens all the time. It's the first time in 43 years that the Yankees and the Dodgers are playing. So, it's fresh. I know there's a long history there, but 43 years are a long time. There are a lot of people who are Yankees and Dodger fans who have not seen the Yankees and Dodgers play in the World Series. I know we got interleague and all that, and the Dodgers, when they came to New York this year, that was really, that was a hyped up series. Last year when the Yankees were in LA, that was another huge series. I think it's great for baseball. Aaron Boone today in the last couple of days really has talked about how it always, since he's been manager, this is his 7th season as manager of the Yankees. It's always hung in the background, like Yankees Dodgers, possibly meeting in the World Series. Obviously, the Yankees didn't make the playoffs last year, but they've always kind of been in the thick of it. Dodgers obviously have always been in the thick of it a bit, well, not a bit, a lot. Going on all these World Series and ALCS. I know the last couple of years have been rough, but it's hard to get these teams, these top seeds and the teams that spend money. It's hard for them. Like, we don't see that all the time. Two teams like this make the World Series. I think this is like the second time outside of 2020 where the two top seeds have made the World Series since 2000 or something like that. So this is it's a treat for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it. I think a lot of casual viewers, not just in New York and LA, but I think people who know who Aaron Judge is and who know who Shohei Ohtani is and all those people, the other stars that are in it, I think they're going to want to watch it just because. And frankly, we haven't had that in baseball for a bit. So I think it's really great for the game.
Like baseball is one of those sports that does have a lot of parity between it. Last year, just look at the last year's World Series where, you have a last seed Texas Rangers team, albeit they do have stars. They spent a lot of money, but then you have the Arizona Diamondbacks, an 84 win team kind of gets hot at the right time, steamrolls to the World Series. But if you look at the ratings and the viewership, it really wasn't a big home run for Major League Baseball. I could say right now, I'm pretty sure Rob Manfred and everybody involved with Major League Baseball is probably, jumping, in joy behind the scenes. All right. Like, because I just feel like you get the two biggest media markets, you get the I would say it's not a bold stretch to say these are the two biggest franchises in baseball. The Yankees are one of the biggest franchises in the entire world. The reach that this World Series can have to grow the game of baseball, I mean, like you mentioned, we haven't really seen this in baseball. You see it in football, you see it in the NBA, and I feel like having a layoff of like five days, kind of building towards Friday, I feel like that's really good for both these teams and the sport.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a lot of people are getting hyped about this. I have friends who texted me like, "Hey, I'm going to watch this series." People who won't necessarily watch the World Series unless their team is in it. Um, I think it's important. People baseball. You mentioned last year's ratings. I think they were like the lowest ratings ever. I mean, that might be incorrect, but and that was a cool series, a cool story. Like people like us, I think, who love baseball regardless, were watching, right? Even if it's not your team, or even though they don't have necessarily the biggest stars, and with Arizona, it was a great story. So um, you can't please everybody, but I think this is going to be just great for the sport of baseball. I think people who aren't who are into the NFL, the NBA, or UFC, like, those bigger sports nowadays, I think they're gonna, tune in. And that's really cool. And you make a good point about the buildup. I feel like this is kind of like an NFL week or a UFC week right now, where we're kind of talking about all the storylines, and there are a lot of storylines in this, from the history to the present day players to the front offices, the managers, the stars, obviously. So it's really cool to have that opportunity. There's going to be a media day in LA on Thursday. The Yankees had a workout here. I think the Dodgers had one out in LA. Tomorrow there'll be the same thing, some media availability, and I think it's great for the game. And it's funny because the other option after the Yankees clinched was the Mets, right? The Mets, the Yankees. It's like I'll be hopping on a subway, but tomorrow I'll be hopping on a cross country flight instead. So, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be really, really, really fun.
Yeah, and you mentioned, like the media day, and it's eerily similar. If Major League Baseball is going to take a page of the NFL, it's similar to how you have that week layoff between the championship game and then the Super Bowl, where you have the players talking to fans, the media. I feel like this is what this series is kind of trying to replicate in their own way, and I think that's definitely a good direction to take, especially with both of these teams.
Yeah, I think it works with the Yankees and the Dodgers. I mean, I think if it was any other, a lot of other possibilities, a lot of other series, maybe it doesn't. But there's just so many storylines with this series that I think people will enjoy these few days in between it, sort of dissect everything and really just talk about it and analyze it in a way that I think we can't really do a lot of times with baseball, just because it's so every day. But this is more of a marquee event, and I think it's great.
Roger, jump in here. Let's get some more questions for Jorge.
So you mentioned, how, I mean, it's so big, right? Dodgers Yankees hasn't happened in over 40 years. Now, does that say more to it, more to how hard it is, like, for these teams to get to a World Series, or just how, like you mentioned, like, other teams may not like it because it's not their team, but we've seen such a diversity of teams making it to the World Series, right? Like the D-backs last year, the Rangers winning their first. What do you think? Why haven't we seen this? Is, like you said, is it just because it's so hard, or now because so many teams are really good teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a few things. Well, it's a couple things. I think it is hard, right? You need some luck. Injuries are a big part of it. If your guys are getting hurt, the Yankees last year were decimated by injuries, and they didn't even make the playoffs. Now, a team like the Dodgers, they've made the playoffs every year, but they've had years where it's been, Max Muncy gets hurt on the last day of the world, of the regular season, and he's not available for the postseason. Things like that happen. So I think that's definitely some luck, and then within the tournament of the postseason, there's some luck as well. I just think ultimately, these teams are designed, yeah, you want to win. The goal is to win the World Series, but the regular season and the postseason are so different. I think the Dodgers are best equipped to win during the regular season. There's no team better at winning during the regular season. Their depth, their star power, all that stuff. Obviously, over the last several years, the conversation in LA has been, hey, what about the postseason? They broke through this year. We can dissect the reasons why, analyze the reasons why. They were able to do it this year. I think just the tournament, the playoffs are just so different from the regular season. The days off during series, whereas during the regular season, you might play. It's usually 6 games a week. Sometimes just one off day a week. We're getting it here now. The Yankees had an off day after game 1 of the ALDS. You have 2 games off day, 3 games off day. It's just a lot. So that allows you to play around with the pitching more. The depth doesn't matter as much, where I think the depth usually is a strength for the Dodgers, right? Now, again, this year, the Dodgers have done it very unconventionally. They have 3 starters in a bullpen game, pretty much in these series. I don't think that's how they drew it up. Actually, I know that's not how they drew it up. They have a bunch of starters who are hurt. So it takes some magic, some luck, whatever it is. They're super talented in the lineup. But, when Glass now is hurt and Gavin Stone is hurt and Kershaw's hurt and Bobby Miller's not Bobby Miller and all these guys who, are banged up, I'm not sure that this is not how they envisioned it. So it's funny they broke through this year with all those injuries in the starting rotation when they've had, that 21 team to me was amazingly talented, and they had the starting rotation and all that good stuff. And it's not a coincidence to me that the Dodgers won in 2020 and the Rays, who have a very sort of similar, they look a small budget version of what the Dodgers do, that those teams are the ones that met in the World Series, because that postseason. And I hear all the time about the Mickey Mouse. We all hear it, right? The Mickey Mouse ring, how easy it was. I get it, 60 game season, blah, blah, blah. But that postseason, I would argue, was the hardest postseason because they played every day, And that to me was why, 2 teams like the Dodgers and the Rays who had that depth, 1 through 26. And not necessarily like we've seen over the years, like the Nationals won the World Series and they won it because they were very top heavy. But that top was Juan Soto and Rendon and Trey Turner and Max Scherzer and Strasburg. They had stars, but the bottom half of that roster wasn't, great. They used 3-4 starting pitchers and 4 relievers. Whereas, I think it's a long-winded way of me saying I think that just the regular season, the postseason are kind of just two different animals, and it's hard to sort of conquer both. To be able to do well in both in 1 year, given the luck and whatever you need. So, that's ultimately, I think, the reason why. I think the Dodgers, like I said, have been great. I mean, the Dodgers have been great at winning in the regular season. The Yankees, besides last year, have been really, for the most part, have put themselves, given themselves the opportunity to go to the World Series. Sometimes it's just about getting hot, man. It's like this year, I thought it was going to be the Mets. I thought the Padres were going to be in it. It's every round was like, oh, well, that team's getting the Tigers. That's not, maybe it's the Tigers all of a sudden is going to come in here and make the World Series. But to me, it's good that the 2 best teams in the league, in both leagues, are in the World Series. It makes it the previous 6 months matter more. Sometimes I watch these postseasons and I'm like, all right, well, nobody thought that team was any good about a month ago, 2 months ago. Now they're in the World Series, and that's cool. It's a great story. They get hot. But yeah, what about the last 6 months? It'd be cool if sometimes I wonder if we reward those teams enough for what they did over the course of a regular season. So I think it's great that the 2 best teams during the regular season, whether it's New York, LA, wherever they're from, or however many stars they have, I think it's good that the 2 best teams in the sport, the teams with 2 best records in each league, are in the World Series.
I want to segue a little bit now actually into this matchup. I heard you today in the Aaron Boone availability. You asked him if he's prepared for Shohei Ohtani pitching, and we've heard that since the playoffs were starting. Like, will Shohei pitch? We've talked to people like Ned Colletti. He thinks that he would pitch, and he mentioned too, Dodgers have no reason to tell us, hey, he's ready to pitch. I mean, we know he's been throwing bullpens. Supposedly he hasn't thrown like live BP or anything like that. But what do you think? Do you think that there's a chance that Shohei Ohtani could pitch in this World Series?
I don't think he's going to. I think there's always a chance. I don't think he's going to. It's a question I ask because it's been something that's been percolating in LA. I know that I read everybody and stuff, and you watch the press conferences, and I know there've been times where Friedman and Roberts first said it and then kind of shut it down or whatever. It's kind of been a back and forth. But it does mean that the possibility, at least at some point, kind of existed, And I asked that question today just because it's something that a lot of people are talking about. I turned on Pat McAfee today when I got back home from work, and they were talking about it. The possibility of Shohei Ohtani pitching, and I think it'd be a great spectacle. I watched him pitch in the WBC when he struck out. When he closed that game out against Team USA for Japan and struck out Mike Trout. That was awesome. I mean, it was a great moment. Place was packed, stars on both sides, Shohei against this, all that stuff. Now imagine that, at the World Series. Do I think it's responsible? I don't know. I haven't been around the team enough to know like exactly what Shohei's been doing. I think like you guys said, like during, bullpens and all that, I just don't know how ready he is for that kind of stress. It's one thing to throw a BP at an empty Dodger Stadium or throw a live BP and just then go into, game 4 of the World Series or whatever, game 7. It's completely different. Now, if there's anybody in the world who could handle that, it's probably Shohei Ohtani, right? He seems to be able to handle anything and everything. But, we're probably not going to see it. It'd be awesome if we did, though. And it sounds like, well, the Yankees, at least Aaron Boone said, like, I'm ready. We're ready. We'll be ready for it. We've seen him before. So I think it'd be great theater. It'd be awesome if we saw Shohei Ohtani pitch in the World Series. Just imagine. We're already talking about the stars and the subplots and the stories and how great this World Series is. You add on that layer, all of a sudden, Shohei Ohtani's running out to the bullpen in Game 6 of a clinching game, whatever, and he's pitching. It'd be awesome.
Cody.
Yeah, it's been a while since we had you on back in June when, we were discussing the regular season matchup between these two. And, it was a 3-game series in the Bronx. Dodgers ended up taking 2 out of 3. That's when Teoscar Hernandez, went on a tear. What's changed between both these teams since then and now? Because, clearly the big one is Juan Soto didn't play in any of those games. Obviously, we mentioned the Dodgers starting rotation injuries where I'm pretty sure most of those starters minus Yamamoto aren't with the team right now just because they are either on the, injured list or they're dealing with something. So what's different between June when they met and then now in October?
Yeah. So you mentioned Soto. The other one is that Garrett Cole wasn't he wasn't healthy yet, or he wasn't, pitching. I believe so. I'm actually gonna look this up real quick to be 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure.
I think he was on rehab.
Injured.
He was rehabbing.
He was
rehabbing during that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So he came back the following week. Yeah. So that was around the time he was rehabbing. So I wasn't sure. So yeah, he wasn't on the roster. So their Yankees were going through it. They started off really well. And it was kind of like right after, it's like a week and a half after that they really started going through it. At that point they had the best record in baseball, and then for like a month and a half, 2 months, they were bad. So that's sort of changed. The Yankees have gone through, at that point, they were one of the best teams in baseball. Everything was clicking. Aaron Judge was hot for a month. Juan Soto was doing its thing. Garrett Cole hadn't pitched yet. And you're like, oh, this team's going to be amazing. Then they go through this like rut. It was pretty bad for like a month and a half, 2 months. And then they come out of it. So I think this team has proven to be pretty resilient. I think the Gleyber Torres that we've seen, I know the Gleyber Torres that we've seen in these playoffs is a completely different Gleyber Torres from June. He got benched late in that month, and since he got benched, he's been getting better and better and better. And here in the postseason, he's been great atop the as a leadoff hitter for the Yankees. I think those two, Giancarlo Stanton is October. Stanton is like he's the New York version of Kike, basically. Kind of become like different players. So I think we're seeing a different team in that, they've gone through a lot of stuff. Beginning of the year, like early June, everything was going well, and whatever. They've gone through it. They pushed through it. They got Cole pitching game 1. He wasn't even available in that series. Gleyber Torres is different, a different player right now. Juan Soto will be healthy, obviously, and he'll be in there. And then Giancarlo Stanton is just a different cat right now. He's always had that power, but right now, it's just like anything. If you throw him anything close to the plate, he's gonna like hit it like 120 miles an hour. What he did in that Guardians series was unbelievable. And having him behind Soto and Judge, we talk, rightfully so. When Freddie Freeman's healthy, you got Ohtani, Mookie, Freddie. It's pretty nice when you have Soto, Judge, and Stanton when Stanton's going the way he's going now. Judge has not been MVP Judge, but in that series against their Guardians, or that big home run off Class A, he's been walking, timely hits. I think he's due for a big series. But this Yankee team, is one of the things that that's kind of the same from then to now, is they're very talented. They're very, they got their stars, and with Soto and Cole on board now, they're gonna have all their stars ready to go.
You mentioned stars. Both teams are filled with them. Potential future Hall of Famers. They're all over this series. But looking at the Yankees, the clear weakness I would say for the Dodgers that beat writers and analysts like yourself, like they still would bring up, which is valid, is the Dodgers just lack rotation depth, and that could be the difference between winning a 7-game series and losing a 7-game series. Because even us behind the scenes, when we're looking at the Mets NLCS, we're like, hey. You get to a game 7, the bullpen after throwing a bullpen game, it's kind of just like a coin flip at that point. With this Yankees team, they have a traditional rotation. They haven't really had to use their bullpen as much, and their lineup, they slugged their way, past a really good, Guardians team that had a lot of good pitching, best bullpen in baseball this regular season. What is a weakness for the Yankees that the Dodgers could possibly exploit, if any?
So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the starting rotation to me is a big deal, but at the same time, we're not seeing these guys going. Garrett Cole went 7 once, Rodon went 6 once. These guys aren't necessarily going super deep because I think at this point, teams are just sort of afraid to have guys go like a third time through, or the stress of these innings. And these hitters nowadays are just, it's tough to get through a lineup, and it's going to be even tougher to get through the Dodgers lineup, right? I think the weaknesses for I think about the Yankees and the weakness, the bullpen. Luke Weaver's been great. Canley's been great. Clay Holmes he was really good for a while, for a few weeks until the Guardian series. But also, Luke Weaver gave one up. I think there are spots there where you can get to that bullpen. But when the bullpen's clicking, it's hard to get to. The other thing I think it's just watching them as much as I did this year is they can get very sloppy on the base path and defensively. There have been times when even in that Royals series, in that game, I think game 1 of that Royals series, they were pretty sloppy. Space running mistakes, errors. I think if you give a team like the Dodgers extra outs, it's going to be trouble. So I think that's where the Dodgers can get them, putting pressure on them, putting the ball in play, making them make plays. And if they run into outs, that's going to be another issue. So I think that's when I looked at the Yankees when they entered the postseason. I always thought they had the talent, and the bullpen was really struggling into September. But it's the kind of thing you work around in the postseason with the schedule. You can move starting pitchers around, and you can use guys back to back days because it's an off, whatever. You can work around the bullpen stuff. The sloppiness is something you can't, And what I think has happened here, and especially in the ALCS, is this team's kind of focused up a bit more. They still made some mistakes, but it wasn't as detrimental. They've done a good job of honing in on that. But you just can't give a team like the Dodgers outs in any situation. So that's the weakness for the Yankees. They can get a little sloppy. But besides that, man, offensively they're clicking. They're basically kind of like the Dodgers. They grind pitchers away, starting with Torres at the top of the order. I think Torres has gotten on base in the first inning in 8 of the 9 playoff games for the Yankees. He just gets on base automatically to start the game. Then you got Soto, then you got Judge, and Stan. So offensively, both teams are juggernauts. I think that's the Yankees' biggest weakness is just kind of they can get a little sloppy.
I'm a big Fangraphs guy, and looking at, their percentage in terms of who's going to win this series, it's as bad as even as you can get. I believe the Dodgers are favored at 50.5%, and the Yankees are at, the other 49 or whatever. They're really close. You mentioned the lineup, the way they attack pitchers. It's very eerily similar, and that happens when you add a guy like Juan Soto, because I don't think that was part of the Yankees game last season specifically. That's a huge reason why they didn't make the postseason. And the Dodgers and the Yankees, the best teams in their respective leagues. What is it going to take for the Yankees to win the World Series? They haven't been here in a while. It's been 15 seasons. 2009, the last appearance, the last time they've won. So it's been a long time coming. What do they have to do to, take advantage of the Dodgers and become world champions again for the 28th time?
Yeah, I think it comes down to them getting to that starting pitching early. If they can, chase Jack Flaherty early and Walker Buehler and Yamamoto, 2 of those 3 or whatever, and tax that bullpen, it's going to be tough for the Dodgers to win. As good as the Dodgers bullpen has been, not only do you get tired, but guys see you more often, and that is, guys say that's a real thing, right? If I see this guy 3 times in a row or 2 days in a row, I'm gonna figure him out eventually, especially as they get gassed, and not just gassed within the series, gassed over the course of the season, and all that work that the Dodgers bullpen has had to do here in the playoffs. So if the Yankees can get to their starting rotation early, I think they'll win the World Series. And I think it's, on the other side, like if the Yankees can get like a couple nice outings from Rodon and Garrett Cole, and not have to go into their bullpen as much, maybe use their bullpen for the other 2 days, or when Schmitz or whatever, Lee Hill's having struggled, whatever it is. Any place that they can sort of save their bullpen with their starting pitchers would be a huge advantage. But I think it comes down to, if the Yankees can get to that bullpen early in the series, that's the recipe for them to win, because we've seen Flaherty struggle. Yamamoto has not pitched deep into games. I know Buehler went, he pitched pretty well the other day, but it was 4 innings. So I think if the starters aren't going to give them length, and this series goes pretty deep, that favors the Yankees.
Roger, anything else before we wrap this up?
I mean, I think it's just going to be a great series. I mean, these teams seem very evenly matched, right? Something we've been waiting for over 40 years, hearing this. I'm not going to ask you for your pick, but I think it's going to be like at least 6 or 7. Would you agree with that? 7 game series?
Oh, yeah. I think it's go 7. I think this goes 7. I think it's going to end up being the kind of series that we all think it's going to be, which means it probably won't be. But, it's just the whole, all the cliches, heavyweight battle, all the blows, all this stuff, it's stars everywhere. It's every inning, the tense, it's gonna be so tense, all the tension from it, all the celebrities in the crowd and the first pitches, and LA versus New York on and off the field, right? It's gonna be so fun. I think back to the Red Sox Dodgers World Series in 2018, and that was cool. I really enjoyed that one, but the teams were, the Red Sox were just way better that year, and they won in 5. I think this is more of an evenly matched, sort of this stars on both sides. Like, let's go, So it's going to be very fun, man. I'm looking forward to it. I know you guys are too. So it's good. Dodger Stadium is going to be crazy on Friday night and Saturday.
And we didn't even get into it. I mean, with Shohei Ohtani, I mean, this is a global thing. Imagine how the fans in Japan are going to be for this World Series game, and there's so much you could get into that, but I mean, it's going to be crazy. And yeah, super excited for it.
Yeah, Jorge, we're definitely excited for this World Series. Where can everybody find you and your work, social medias? Plug that before we end this episode.
Oh, yeah. So I'm at ESPN.com. You just look for MLB and, MLB page, and some of my stuff will be there. And then social media, Twitter, or X, as they call it nowadays, and Instagram, it's Jorge Castillo, JorgeCastillo. You can follow me there. I'm tweeting and Instagramming once in a while.
There we go. Yeah, we can't thank you enough for coming back on to discuss this series. It's definitely going to be a great one, not only for both fan bases, but for the sport in general. So thank you, and we'll see you for the next time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
This episode has been brought to you by BetOnline. The game starts here.